Let's talk about leadership. So, I'm on the precipice of graduating with a degree in enlightened leadership. And when I tell this to someone, the question I inevitably get asked is, what does that mean? The answer is actually not all that complicated in theory. It's just leading from a place of broadened awareness and equanimity. But what does that mean in practice? It's funny, I'm changing locations all the time in these videos, but my microphone cable's so short that I don't really think it matters so much because I can't separate myself from the camera. But just know that I do this for you. To lead is to make decisions, sometimes very hard decisions, sometimes decisions that will be divisive to those that are affected by these decisions. This is just part of being a leader. And despite all of the intellectual gymnastics that you might go through to weigh the pros and cons of any decision and do a cost-benefit analysis, the ripple effect of any given decision for any of us in life is truly unfathomable intellectually. Although the decision takes into account as much as the individual's or a collective's intellect can take, in the end, the decision must come from a deeper place. It is the courage of the heart that moves things forward. Sometimes there may not be a good intellectual justification as why a decision is made, but that doesn't necessarily make it the wrong decision. I believe that the more one works to grow, expand, and evolve, the greater their capacity for making the right decision is. It's really all a consciousness game. With every subsequent level, we go deeper into our being, and the deeper we go, the closer we get to this place of just knowing. Think about trying to solve a problem in your life and working so hard at it intellectually and not getting anywhere, and then taking a break and the answer just suddenly coming to you out of nowhere. A lot of times these big answers come to us when we're not looking for them. And that's because at that time we're in a state of rest. We're more connected to that subtle, deep level within us. I would in the future like to do another segment on leadership, as I feel like I have a lot more to say, and I feel like this is already running a little bit long. But for now, I just like to end with this. Everyone is a leader, whether they have constituents or not. Every individual is a piece of the larger mosaic. How they connect to their dharma and move things forward in their own life showcases how well they could lead from their very unique individual position. Just remember this. If we change ourselves, we change the world. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of Seek and Tell. You have just seen my intro segment on leadership, hopefully. And hopefully it was okay. I'm just coming in from that, so I might look a little bit sweaty. Like I've been outside in the hot sun for the last 10 minutes or so, because I have. But yeah, welcome to the podcast. I noticed last week when I recorded episode three's intro, I did this whole thing where I had the camera off to the side, but the microphone was, I think, too much in the forefront, and I noticed afterwards the focus shifting from me to the microphone constantly. And I don't know about like the two people that watched it, if that affected them so much, but I know when I watched it, it was hard for me to focus on the podcast with the with the focus of the camera switching. So just no focus. So we're being more focused this week. Episode 4. It's about leadership, but it's also about focus. So camera, stay focused, and I'll try to do the same. But thanks for listening again. If you, or maybe not again, if this is your first time, welcome. We're learning as we go. We're getting hopefully better each episode. It's all cyclical, so sometimes we get better. Sometimes maybe I don't go into it with the best mindset or as rested as I could be, and it isn't the best product. But I feel overall we're growing as a person, as a podcaster, as a soul, all that good stuff. So yeah, we learn from our mistakes, just like moving the camera slightly to the side. This week, I had an interview with Bob Roth, who is a really awesome guy, very friendly, very easy to talk to. This is my first time meeting him. Actually, was during the interview, so that's a first for me. My prior three guests I had met one or two times for two of them, and then Fred Travis I've spent a lot of time with. So yeah, you get the chance for me to talk to Bob Roth, or to see me talk to Bob Roth for the first time, and yeah, I think went really well. I was like I said, I'm just every week, every episode, I feel like I'm growing, just getting more comfortable. And you know what the thing is? It's being comfortable that I can let go and not try to control too much. And once you have like that, it's really like a deep confidence, you know. And for me, that's what real confidence is. It's this confidence that I don't have to get in my own way and move all the pieces around. I trust that I've done everything I need to do up to this point. So it's a matter of just trusting myself, and that's what I try to do. And I felt like I did a pretty good job of it. You know, I was obviously a little bit nervous beforehand, but before I just sat with my body and was kind of present with the feelings, and just telling myself. And anyone who works towards something, or feels like they're in a place that is right for them, more or less, or at least right for them at that time. You can tell yourself this too, and this isn't just me, but I was just telling myself, like, this is what you prepare for, you know, like, this is, if you really think that you can do this, then you don't need to be nervous. You can just let go. If you really feel like you can do this, you can let go, and you'll be able to do this. And so that's really all it was. It's so simple, you know, because in the past I try to make up for my inability to let go by over preparing and trying too hard. And I it may not be noticeable from the outside when I'm trying too hard or over prepared, but, and I don't just mean like in the past with this podcast, I mean just in life in general. Uh because that's how I would, it's like I'm nervous, but I'm just going to try to almost uh fix what my body is feeling by intellectualizing it so much. And intellectualization, we can get into it another time, but it's like a, you know, it's a defense mechanism somewhat. You know, it's thinking through your feelings, thinking through what your body's telling you. And so I've done that in the past, you know, when I've had to do things that made me nervous, just like uh overthink them so much that I almost can't be nervous because I've thought so much about it. But then what happens then is you're trying to control too much, and then you're so in your head during the thing because you want it to be how you prepared for it to be beforehand. And that is the part that makes you nervous, when you're like, ah, crap, it's not going how I want it to go. Let's bring it back over here. Um, you know, it's obvious, okay to have a vision in mind, but like ultimately you have to be in the moment. You got to be present with what you're doing, and people can tell if you're not. So all that to say, I think I did a pretty good job of that during this interview. I thought it went really well. Um, you know, Bob Roth is this guy who he teaches TM to all the celebrities. He's responsible for bringing transcendental meditation to like impoverished nations and all this stuff. Just really all around incredible human being. And I think we had a great time. I felt like it could have gone even longer if we had had more time. But yeah, what is there is really good, and and I'm proud of it. You know, I'm still getting better, and that's, for me, that's where the fulfillment lies in doing this show so far, is just this. I feel myself enriched by it. You know, like I feel like I'm growing holistically, and it's not so much about like online presence or like monetizing it. I really don't. This is all like kind of tertiary to me, you know. But it's so much about my own personal growth, and putting myself out there, having the courage to put myself out there, and and also not be so attached to how it's received or how little it's received, I guess. It's almost like, would I rather nobody to see it or people to see it and not like it? I don't really know. I guess in the end it doesn't. In the end, it doesn't matter. To quote the words of Linkin Park, um, I I'm just I feel like this is all a growth. This is all a growth journey, a process for me of just doing these things and trying to be as pure hearted and minded as possible. And yeah, it's wonderful. It's all its own technique, it's all steps towards my own evolution. I know you hear me say that a lot because it's true, because all of these things are, like if we're actually like pushing ourselves and challenging ourselves to grow, then that's evolution. That's our technique for evolving. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode with Bob Roth. I enjoyed the interview as much as I did, and I will catch you on the flip side. Thank you. And we're recording. Hello and welcome to the Seek and Tell podcast, episode 4. Back with another of hopefully many interviews to come. And this one with a very, very, very special guest. I know it's like 3 or 4 berries, so he's really, really special. He is a man that he needs no introduction, but he deserves one. So we're going to give it to him. He's the author of Strength and Stillness, a book that so succinctly extols the virtues of transcendental meditation. He successfully brought TM to hundreds, nay, thousands of people around the world through his efforts as CEO of the David Lynch Foundation. Russell Brand once referred to him as the priest of TM, if ever there was such a thing. A man I very much look up to as an example of what leadership can and should be. Ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between is Mr. Bob Roth. Bob, welcome to the show.
And I'm very happy to be your guest, your 4th guest. You've had
Yes.
4 shows, 4th guest. It's an honor.
Correct. And this is kind of my coup de grace. This is the last one for at least this era of the podcast. So we'll see if we continue on afterwards. But
okay,
you're the grand finale, so no pressure.
I can deal with it. I hope.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So I've been asking everybody that I've had on so far. I have this natural curiosity about people's stories and how that intertwines with the force of Dharma and how they've seen that work throughout their life. So if I could just begin by asking you if you could just talk a little bit about your journey to finding TM and what that awoke in you.
Yeah, and then I have a question for you. So
Sure.
I'll answer that, then I have a question for you. I grew up in the 1950s and 1960s in the San Francisco Bay Area. And, I was just a typical dumb kid. Still I'm a dumb kid, typical dumb kid. Typical dumb kid, the 50s and Little League and Boy Scouts. And my parents were sort of progressive. We would have in our home, we would have the United Nations was based in San Francisco, and I lived in a place called Marin County, which was then just this rural, nobody ever crossed the Golden Gate Bridge. But when someone from the UN had a person like the Minister of Finance from Ghana would come and stay at our house for a month while they were working in San Francisco. So that I learned a lot about diversity. My father was a medical doctor who volunteered part-time at San Quentin Prison, a maximum security prison. So I grew up going over to San Quentin and eating in their cafeteria. And my dad was a war veteran, and my mom worked with at-risk youth. So it was in a very conservative community, or white bready community. It was we were a different breed of cat, but it was also everybody loved the family, my family that in the town. So I grew up with a lot of diversity, but just a dumb kid. And then in 1967, everything started changing. Martin Luther King had, Bobby Kennedy was shot 68, Martin Luther King 68, and something started somehow rumbling inside of me, but it was a collective rumbling because that generation So I was born in 1950. That generation was just what's going on with the Vietnam War. I was getting up in age. That was I going to be drafted to go to Vietnam, and it was sort of like a death sentence, and drugs everywhere. And I don't know, just all the institutions were just sort of crumbling underneath my feet. And it's a very strange time. I held on to politics. I decided that I would work for Senator Bobby Kennedy Sr. and help him get the California nominee. Is this too much detail or is this interesting?
No, no, no. This is
Okay.
perfect.
Okay. So get the California Democratic Party nominee. And I went and saw Bobby Kennedy speak in San Francisco on June 1st, 1968. And I remember looking around the auditorium and thinking, it wasn't that I was a Democrat or a Republican. That seemed rather trivial. It was like, wow, this group of people, we could really change the world, just more equitable. And then 5 days later, he was assassinated 4 days later. And that, Dylan, I lived a middle class life. It wasn't like rich, but that shook me to the core of my being. He was like older brother, hero, uncle, everything. I mean, I loved the guy. And so I went to Berkeley in 1960, autumn 1968, amidst all this external turmoil, amongst all this internal turmoil of what was going on. And I decided that I wanted to be a U.S. senator like Bobby Kennedy. I really wanted to change the world, really deeply. And I thought the way you did it was through politics, particularly by making just everybody should have an equal shot at life. It shouldn't be that your color or your gender or your religion, you'd have less at what you do with that shot, but everybody should have an equal shot. So I thought politics. Then I went to Berkeley and it was just all hell breaking. It was just rioting in the streets and tanks. And, I'm this 18-year-old kid. Going to college is tough enough as it is. And I realized politics wasn't going to heal the soul of the nation. I am getting to the answer your question. Old people, we just, meander.
This is all an answer to my question. It's okay.
Okay. So I thought politics, as I saw the right and the left was so, at that time, so almost violent against women. And the right was just, the whole thing was so polarized. It was a mini thing of what we see today. So I thought politics isn't going to do it for me. And my mom was a school teacher. And I thought, well, maybe I could write educational curriculum because I really wanted to work with at-risk population. So maybe I could get a degree in developing educational curriculum. And I was going to school full time, trying to, with all the riots. I was working full time because my dad thought it was important because he grew up in the Depression and he worked to put him through school. And it was just, I don't know, I think I was a poster boy for stress, although we didn't even know what the word stress meant at the time. So I was looking around, what can I do? What can I do? And I'm by nature kind of a skeptic. Like I wasn't into new agey stuff and I wasn't into, there's a million religions and a million sects and all that stuff. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was working, and a friend of mine was doing something called transcendental meditation. And it wasn't a word in my vocabulary, but there was something about him that was special. Everybody else was out of their mind, really, from drugs or whatever, like really out of their mind. And there was something resonated with me. He was down to earth guy. He was a kind person. There was a peacefulness about him, goodness about him. And I admired it. And so I said, what are you doing? He said, transcendental meditation. I said, I don't believe in any of that stuff. And he held a pen on one hand and he dropped it into his other hand. And he said, you don't have to believe in gravity for the pen to fall. You don't have to believe in transcendental meditation for it to work. So I came to TM more for initially that confusion in my life, stress and turmoil, and there was no center. I had just no center. I didn't want to find it with drugs. I had tried them in high school, and just the coming and going of the stuff. I kept wondering, and then I'll let you ask another question. But you got me going here. I kept wondering, why can't I just sit in my own skin and feel at peace? Why aren't I just enough? Just as me, to just sit. Why do I need a drug? Why do I need this? I knew exercise was important. I knew when I started meditation, that was fine. That's all internal. So I learned it, and it didn't take me many days. I didn't have flashy experiences, but it didn't take me many days to realize this was something real. And then a little bit later to think, oh, because I wanted to help kids, maybe this is something I could teach those kids with. Hold on just a second. I muted out a cough for your four listeners. No, for all
Professional.
your, yeah, I know, so professional. And I remember thinking, maybe this is a thing I could teach those kids because I wanted to give the kids something. In San Francisco area, you had South San Francisco, which was really, the words they used then was the ghetto, which is a derogatory term, but then it was the ghetto, the inner city, or in East Oakland, tough areas. Maybe that was what I could teach those kids. And that was June 28th, 1969. So now I run a foundation, David Lynch Foundation, that has brought it to over 1 million kids for free, which I love.
Hmm.
And so anyway, that's how I started. Go ahead.
Well, you know, this all reminded me of your story reminded me of this. You just this whole like I want to change the world, but I don't know where to start. Because when I hear you talk about your story, I hear you have this spark, you know, of this like I want to do something, I want to contribute to change the world, but we're not really given a clear direction on what level to start to enact real change. You know, like for you and probably for many other people, myself included, we sort of bounce around on these surface levels of like, I'm going to go, you know, work in social services. I'm going to work within, you know, the foster care system or something like that, you know, and these are great and very noble professions, but um, they're perpetuating a system that doesn't enact change at a deep level. And
That's
so
what I
when
realized.
you,
Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I'm probably just going to prompt what you're just about to say. I was just going to ask if when you initially learned TM and sort of started to experience that we'll say this more subtle level of life, did you start to awaken to this possibility that okay, maybe change can be enacted on a level that isn't just these surface level, we'll say putting out little fires here and there.
Well, there was also the realization I may have to pause again. You're going to have to do some serious
Okay, it's
editing
okay.
here. So weird. Um, I mean, today, so I want to create systemic change.
Mm,
And you can give a child all the best educational opportunities. You even see rich kids, all the best educational opportunities, all the best upbringing, love of two parents, and they're suicidal. The stress has gotten to them, or they're depressed. They become addicts, and um, or you can have a wonderful healthcare system, best medicines, best, you know, you have cancer, you have high blood pressure, you get all that stuff. But if you're stressed, it doesn't get rid of all that. High blood pressure medication doesn't get rid of the stress. You can keep taking, you know, you can buy all this sleep medication you want, not getting rid of the stress. So wherever you look, or you can help a veteran. Okay, here's a veteran back from the war, and you want to give him a job. So he goes from the stress of war back to the stress of his family, to the stress of a workplace, or stress of a college education. Look what kids who don't have the trauma of war, how they handle business, how they handle school. So unless we equip people with tools to be able to manage that surface stress, no modality is going to, you know, you could say, well, if we had better housing. Well, I can point you to tons of people, kids who grew up in the best housing, who are suicidal, drug addicts, stressed out of their mind. I teach billionaires who can't sleep at night. And I also teach really poor people who sleep great at night. So I think on the surface level, a tool, I like to call David Lynch Foundation, what we're doing is the democratization of meditation. What can we do to bring the ability to transcend, to dive within, to access your own innermost self? Bring that to everyone. Take away all the possible obstacles. Is it money? Fine, have it be covered by insurance. Is it time? Have it be included in the school day or have it be included in your work day. Is it access to learning it? Learn it on school time, learn it on business time. Remove all the obstacles to transcending. And then I think so that's what we're focused on, the democratization of meditation. And then, Dylan, you have an opportunity for serious sustainable change and scalable change. And people say to me, yeah, but this and this. And I said, everybody meditating is not going to solve all the problems in the world, but it's going to give us the tools and the resilience to start solving those. Yeah, you meditate, you still have to have a better healthcare system. You still have to have better jobs. You still have to have better food. You still have to have better air. But if we're stressed out of our minds and we're doing everything to self-medicate ourselves with alcohol or drugs or sex or whatever, nothing is going to happen. And if we're victim of everything, nothing is going to happen. So I find, for me, TM as the ultimate tool for radical change in the world, in a healthy way. Radical change meaning lifting ourselves out of this sort of, as you were saying, just on the surface, this little thing, this little thing, this little thing. I tell people, college kids here in New York City, and they say, well, I'm going to get a degree. I'm going to teach school. I want to make an impact in education. I say, great, get a master's in education, go into the New York City public schools. You're going to be low person on a totem pole. No one's going to listen to you. Just another cog in a machine for 30 years or whatever. You can play politics, or you could spend a few more months, become a teacher of transcendental meditation, and then teach all the kids or all the teachers or anyone in all the schools. So it's a tool for change.
And when you speak about systemic change, we talk in movement terms. We speak about the individual being like the singular unit of a society, right? So when you mention systemic change, can that only happen with the change of individuals, who, the individuals obviously perpetuate the system. So if they change the individual, then logically it seems like the system should change.
Well, it'll naturally happen. We're already sort of, to a certain degree, seeing it market driven. When I was a kid, the idea of eating vegetarian was a joke, or being concerned
Right.
about the environment was a joke, or green or renewable energy was a complete joke. Nobody,
Yoga.
you're a tree hugger. Yoga, complete. Your meditation was wackadoodleville. Well, as more and more people want it, more and more people will drive the change. But they really have to want it to drive the change, because the quote unquote powers that be are not going to change if they don't have a sense that this is what is going to, market driven, is going to make them money. They're not into living their life on earth just to do good. They want to make a killing financially, which fine, but it shouldn't be that kills other people too.
And that actually brings me to fast forwarding a little bit, like your experience in teaching TM and teaching TM, like you said, the democratization of meditation. Have you noticed a shift in we'll say receptivity over the years, as perhaps the world's consciousness becomes more receptive to this stuff?
Night and day.
Okay.
I mean, like pitch black to it's not noonday sun, but it's 11 in the morning. I mean, there's so much receptivity. I couldn't even say the word meditation in polite company when I was a kid. I remember I had an Uncle Arthur, who was a psychoanalyst, and he heard about TM. This would I always use Uncle Arthur's story as a sort of an example of how times change. Psychoanalyst, heard I was doing TM. He just thought it was the stupidest thing in the world, just crazy, stupid, dismissive. Bob's, he'll grow up. And then as I continued to meditate over the years, he'd say, well, it's not so stupid, but yeah, you can't hurt. And then by the end of his life, he said, well, why didn't you ever teach me this thing? Even though I'd always offered and offered and offered. but that's just, because times change, collective consciousness changes.
Hmm.
People wake up to the notion that we're moving too fast in the world. We have to have an island of calm within ourselves. We have to access that. Otherwise, we're just going to burn out. This whole thing from Nike, just do it, is nothing could be further from the truth in Mother Nature. The brain can't, the brain needs breaks turns out every 50 or 60 minutes. The brain needs a break. It can't just keep pumping out, all day glucose and everything to keep it going. It needs a break. So we have to have a break. And that's what the message is. Change begins within. Message of the
Hmm.
David Lynch Foundation.
I think it's important to maintain the perspective that you sort of just laid out there of how things have shifted, because it's really easy to get caught up in the fear mongering of the time, you could say, or just this notion that things are getting worse or everything's going to hell in a handbasket. But when you really, I mean, someone like you who's lived through, the change, like you have this perspective of like, oh, it's better. Trust me, like,
It's
you know.
better. And just the interesting thing, one time Maharishi said, when the rose gets bigger, the thorns get bigger. And then he said there'll be a time it'll just be the rose and no thorns. But you look at it, you have this growing awakening, people able to, there's research now on, I have a friend of mine who runs a research lab at Harvard, and he's doing research on higher states of consciousness and transcendental meditation and Buddhism and all these different things. And Massachusetts General Hospital in Harvard 20 years ago, just the psychology department just banished anybody who'd talk about that. Now he's the young hero of Harvard for talking about this and going beyond just meditation for getting rid of stress, but meditation for harnessing your full unbounded creative potential. And how does that show up in the brain? That's a massive transformation. Besides which, all the other things that are going on in terms of lifestyle changes, diet and exercise. So yeah, I mean, we've come so far. If you just look at transcendental meditation as one barometer, it's night and day difference. If you were just born into it, then you would say, I sometimes I think about it. You're going across the country in a the covered wagon, and you go through all this hell, and then somehow you get born in it. I mean, you're not, but and then you wake up like the last 500 miles. You don't know what it was like to get to those last 500 miles. And so, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on that went on, but there's so much more receptivity. It's not enough. People are still being not able to learn to meditate or, whatever, for whatever reason, but it's getting much, much better. I promise to try and answer your question shorter now.
No, no, it's okay. I mean, I do have is you're out at 12 o'clock your
No,
time
no,
at
I'm good
noon?
till 12:15, 12:15.
12:15. Okay, good. I
All
wasn't quite
right, now
sure.
here comes
Okay.
some shorter answers. Here comes some. But I want you to
It's
know
all
and
right.
I want you to know and leave this in. You are an excellent interviewer.
Well, thank you very much. I
You
appreciate
could
it.
definitely have a podcast. You could definitely have an audience. You're really good.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's funny, someone told me ahead of time, I spoke to them a couple weeks ago saying, he's really good at giving these succinct answers. So good luck extracting like long answers out of
And
him.
here, and now I can't stop. Should we start over? Have the answer's been too long?
Yeah, I'll ask you the same questions again, and then you could just answer them again
Okay.
in one sentence. You could distill
Okay,
everything you
good.
said.
That's the
No,
way we'll
no,
do it.
no. This is great. I mean, this is really
Well,
what I like from podcasts is for people to really delve in, because I think I know for me at least, the longer I talk, and maybe it's just because I don't have that city of being very succinct. The longer I talk, the deeper I can get to that wholeness, to that good point, and I think the more entertaining the ride becomes for those
yeah,
listening.
yeah,
So
yeah.
hearing you speak and tell your story, I think it's great. And
No, you're
there's
good.
a lot more nuggets.
I never talk about this stuff, so it's good. You've done well.
Wonderful. I was just under the impression that I was asking you the same questions that you always get asked, but
I know, but something about you. Anyway. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, I was just gonna shift gears a little bit. Every episode I've done so far has had like a theme, very loose conceptual theme. So this one's going to be leadership. I just felt it fitting, and being kind of the finale of my project and my degree being in enlightened leadership, I felt like this should be the leadership episode. So my I'm an undergraduate in enlightened leadership, and every time I mention that to someone, they're just like, well, what does that mean? And then I have to gauge like their level of how far can I go into the consciousness aspect before they glaze over.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I've developed my own, more or less elevator pitch about what enlightened leadership is. But I would like to hear your perspective, and you speak just about enlightened leadership and what that means to you and what that looks like to you coming from you.
I always liked Marshy said the best leader is the leader who the people who are being led don't know they're being led.
Hmm.
They're finding the leadership within themselves. That leader awakens within their quote unquote followers the leadership within, because it's sort of like self-governance from within yourself. You take responsibility for yourself. Now you can be a mentor, you can be a guide, but ultimately people have to grow from within, take responsibility from within. I know Marshy one time said the two key elements to success are conviction and persistence. Conviction I always saw as a sort of a vertical thing. Deep within my soul, I know this is what I should be doing. I know this relationship is right. I know for me, running a foundation is right. I know this job is right. This, whatever. I just have a deep conviction. But that conviction has to last over time. So persistence is a horizontal thing. And then you stay with it. You stay. I believe in this relationship, and now, I'm committed to it over time, or this startup opportunity or something. And I think a leader is a person who can awaken in individuals within themselves to have that conviction and persistence, whether it's an individual thing, again, a relationship or a job, or it's a collective thing to make a better country, to make a more equitable world. But and I think a leader also can't. The best leader is the leader who's not in it for herself or himself.
Mhm.
When people come to work with the David Lynch Foundation, I said, don't come to work at the foundation if you have something to prove. Come to
Mm,
the David Lynch Foundation because you want to make a better world, because people are
mm,
suffering. And this is not the only thing that's going to alleviate suffering. There's so many things, but this is an important thing. So come with the intention to serve. Don't come to show who's the greatest and the best, and not interested. And so I think I think enlightened leadership is the person has to know themselves, be true to themselves. What does it say? What Maharishi said once: know yourself, be true to yourself, do what you know to be right, don't do what you know to be wrong. And then and then guide, but do it for the right reasons. You can
mm.
probably explain that a lot better than I can, because you've got getting a degree on it. But I have had the blessings to spend at different periods of time over 50 years, different periods of time with Maharaji. And the way he treated me was figure it out.
Mm,
Go figure it out. Don't
mm,
ask me everything that needs to be done. Make it work. Just I want to do. We need to get this done. Make it work. Do it right. All those things. Be true to yourself. And so I never liked being micromanaged by anybody. And I think if there's any problem that I have, even with the David Lynch Foundation, is it's trusting. Okay, you're going to do it. You're going to figure it out. You'll work hard because we're in this for the right reason. So anyway, those are my thoughts
mm.
on enlightened leadership.
Yeah,
Figure it out.
exactly. It's funny. That's almost exactly what I interviewed Candace Badgett of the Raj, and she mentioned kind of this whole raising her hand and volunteering to her and Rogers volunteering to open the Raj, and it was exactly that. It was this figure it out thing, and she said something really, really poignant, I think, about responsibility kind of being its own technique of evolution. It's like, and that's what Maharishi was very skilled at, was giving someone something that would awaken something within them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. And there's this great quote about education from William Butler Yeats. He said, "Education is not about filling the pail; it's about lighting a fire."
Mm,
And I think that's the same with
mm,
leadership. It's not telling everybody what to do; it's to light the fire within themselves. And then, if you're meditating and you're more aligned, and you're being true to yourself, and you're aligned with nature, then naturally you're going to do the right stuff for yourself and for society. You don't have to have all these people telling you what to do, and punishment and punishment and punishment. It doesn't do anything. It
mm.
doesn't do anything. It doesn't anyway.
Yeah. I'm curious now, you mentioned persistence and uh trusting people to do
To be
to
like, yeah, to
having the
be the same
faith that
way.
they can do it. Yeah. How often is that tested for you? I mean, is that
All the
just a
time, but it's my
continuous
blind
thing?
spot. It's my blind spot because I want to get to the point, and I suppose that's enlightenment. Maharishi described enlightenment as wide awake within yourself, and
Mm,
just wide awake, no shadows. And that also would be in your relationship with other people. I want to see people for who they are, as best I can, not shadowed by my previous stresses or my previous
mm,
traumas, just for who they are, so that I don't get blindsided. It's
mm,
in life anyway. Oh, I had expectations about this woman or about this guy, or I had expectations about this. And if I'd seen it more clearly, that line, well, I just
right.
didn't see that coming. Well, that's another value to get enlightened, so you can see the stuff coming, you can see it clearly,
Mm,
and you can make the right decisions. So yeah, it happens all the time. I'm getting better at it. I think so I give the person the benefit of the doubt, but you want to see them, what you're giving the benefit of the doubt. It shouldn't just be out of blind faith. You should, okay, if I see this person and they're like this and they're at step 5 and I need to get them to step 10, well, then these are the steps they have to take. I don't know. You can't lead blindly. I think a
mm,
leader has to be wide awake.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds to me like it's very much almost this like waking state yoga for you. It's like this is me like with this technique of sort of trusting people and giving people responsibility of awakening myself to not be blinded so much by my own stresses when dealing with
Yeah,
others.
there's this great quote. It's a Zen statement or something like that. Oh, no, American Indian. People who burn their mouth on hot soup often blow cold air on yogurt. They don't see the difference because they have
Right.
that
Yeah.
stress from that burn that they think whatever comes in. I love that. Isn't that a great one?
That's really funny. Yeah.
It's really good one. Oh, and then that's that blinding. Oh, I burned my tongue and it was in a jar, it was in a canister. Therefore, now someone puts yogurt in front of me. Now I'm going to cool down the yogurt. I'm not seeing the reality.
Hmm.
And I really love that. People who burn their tongue on hot soup often blow cold air on yogurt.
I didn't know they had hot soup and yogurt back then in the
Oh yeah, they
frontier
had
days,
yogurt.
but
Oh no, no, I don't mean this is American Indian. No, I actually in the pre-frontier days. No, excuse me. That is a Zen statement. Sorry.
no
From
worries.
yeah, they had soup and they had cultured milk.
Got it.
Anyway, wherever I will look it up.
It's
Good
okay.
catch though.
No, it's okay.
No, they had stew out on the covered wagon. They had beef stew, and then they had hot soup, and then okay, now here's your yogurt. What is this, Mom? Yogurt?
Yeah.
I
Where'd this
want
come from?
lassi. I want lassi. Yeah, Mom, you
That's
know
funny.
I'm lactose intolerant.
Said no one back then.
He said no
Yeah.
one back then.
Yeah. Um, I haven't forgotten that you said you had a question for me. Maybe
I have two
it's way
questions. I
past
have
the
two
time that
questions.
it's
No,
relevant,
no, no.
but
I have two
okay.
questions. Uh, why are you what brought you to MIU, and why did you choose enlightened leadership?
Yeah, the choice.
This is
I'm
Dylan's
at this.
origin
Yeah.
story. This is Dylan's origin story.
Well, if you the whole origin story is quite long, but I'll try to give you the Bob Roth succinct version of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
And that's I'm at this point where it doesn't really it's kind of a cop out answer, but it doesn't feel like I'm choosing it anymore. It feels like it's
No,
kind of just choosing me or it's
no, it's
flowing
a
through
great
me.
answer. Great answer. Go
Um,
ahead.
I came to TM in 2020. I was living in Australia and I was sponsored working at a banana farm, sponsored for my permanent residency. I started to get really heavily into various spiritual traditions and mindfulness meditation and all that. And then just had the notion that I wanted to learn TM kind of out of nowhere. I didn't even know what it was. And there's lots of serendipity involved along the process that kind of reinforced that I was doing the right thing. But yeah, I learned it and was kind of like, okay, this sort of feels like the answer to me. And then ever since then, it's been this steady unfoldment of my path, of my dharma. I started to perhaps open my mind to maybe being a TM teacher very early on. I was doing retreats and learning my advanced techniques. I was waiting for their cities, but it wasn't happening there because of COVID. And then on one of the Taste of Utopia 2.0, I don't know if you remember that, they did like a web version of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
they advertised this enlightened leadership program for the first and probably only time. And it was a scholarship program that brought you to MIU. And at this point, I had quit my job since learning TM. It started to not feel right. I went into working with like disabled and elderly. I was looking for something that was a little more altruistic, maybe a little bit more in line, like your intention of changing the world. And yeah, then the scholarship happened and it just felt right. And so 29 years old at that time, and I was very much, I did not think that college was ever going to be a thing for me, but went along with it just because it felt like the next step. And then here I am, 3 years later, finishing this program, and then I'll be starting my master's soon.
That's
But
wow.
yeah, it's so much of it is not, it's not this cost benefit analysis. It's not this like, should I choose this or should I choose that?
Right,
It
right,
doesn't
right, right.
seem like an option, if that, but in a good way. It's just like, yeah, this makes sense. It's the next. It's just it's putting your foot forward. It's not something you think about. You're walking forward.
It's you just yeah. It's a wonderful, it's a wonderful path that opens up that's so tender, and so you just have to cherish that, to have that, because it's a very tender thing to have that sense of, you're just, the path is open, because it can be lost quickly,
Mm,
that
mm,
tender thread, because it's a connection to the universe, connection to
yeah,
nature, and it can be lost if you do something that is sort of opposed to nature,
yeah.
opposed to it.
I mean, I
I
feel
always
like
like
I'm
I
finding
was
it and losing it all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, I always likened it to, you're climbing up a mountain, and you're going around and around, looping the mountain towards the top. And I always find that I keep my eye on the path, because it doesn't matter if I've been climbing for 5 days. I have one more day. Climbing for 5 days, you take your eye off the path at any point, you could tumble.
Mm,
So it does require that sort of, people say, well, we've been doing this for 5 years or 10 years. How did that happen? You take your eye off the path. So
mm,
it's something that naturally, without getting crazy on it, I, I take care of my health. I go to sleep on time. I do all these different things, because when I'm connected, I feel this infinite energy and
mm,
creativity and happiness from inside. When I'm disconnected, it's dark. I
mm.
remember I taught this one woman to meditate, Ellen DeGeneres, and I
This
asked her
one
why she,
woman, like you
yeah,
preface it
yeah.
with that.
Well, I wasn't sure I was going to tell you her name. I decided to
Oh
go
yeah,
there. Yeah.
I'm
So I
glad.
said, why do you want to learn to meditate? And she said, because I want to maintain permanent connection with the intelligence that runs the universe. And then she said, and I can't sleep at night. And that's actually the beauty of transcendental meditation. That'll be my final comment. Transcendental meditation is that it does attend to those, we have a desire. Oh, I want to be creative. I want to be successful. I want to change the world. I want to have a loving relationships. I want to have a whatever, big vision of, but stress, but I get headaches or I'm anxious or I can't sleep at night or I get bouts with depression and all these different things. And those are very real and they're blocks to that expansion. So you have in transcendental meditation a simple tool that can give you the deep rest that will help alleviate those blocks of stress and give you expanded awareness that will allow you to be a conduit for an instrument for nature to do really big things.
Absolutely. And I think that's a perfect button to end this on. So Bob, very, very nice. It's been an absolute pleasure being able to talk with you for these 45 minutes or so, coughing fit
Yeah,
included.
just no, just eliminate everything but the coughing fit.
Yeah.
Here's
I'll loop it over and over again and just say I interviewed Bob Roth for 40 minutes and he just
and
coughed
he
the
just
entire
coughed, and
time.
here it is, and we'll slow it down, coughing and speed. Yeah.
But
I did
thank you very
actually
much
have
for
some.
taking the time. Yeah.
Okay, no, wonderful, really wonderful to be with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for coming along and hey, maybe we'll do it again sometime and I hope that our paths cross at some point in the future.
Let me know, Dylan. Let me know if I can do it. It's a yes.
Okay.
All
Wonderful.
right.
Well, thank you
Take
so
care.
much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, you too. Bye bye.
Bye now. All right, that was hopefully a very enjoyable interview with Bob Roth that you just listened to slash watched. Had it, like I said before, had a lot of fun doing it. Anything I say now, I'll just feel like I'm repeating myself because here's a little inside scoop on how I do this: is I just record the outro right after the intro. I'm not also listening to the interview, so yeah, I've basically just said everything I want to say about the podcast in my intro segment that I just recorded. Uh, but yeah, I really hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening all the way to the end. If you've made it this far, or if you're just skipping around, that's cool too. I appreciate that you're at least trying to find something interesting inside this podcast. So hope you enjoyed that. This will be we'll say the last episode of this era of the podcast. I don't know what that means, but maybe we'll say season might be a better term. But it means I'm gonna be class is ending. I'm gonna be going on break. I'm gonna be going on a holiday to Taiwan, so I likely won't be doing any more episodes. But but we'll see what happens. We'll see what materializes afterwards, and maybe I'll be reinvigorated and have a whole new list of amazing topics and things to talk about when I come back. Um, so really looking forward to that, but looking forward to maybe continuing the show. Like I said in either the first or second episode, this is kind of this has begun as a school project, but I really this is something I've been wanting to do for a while, and you know, be it fear or laziness, whatever anxiety has kept me from really like taking the plunge and starting it. So, for nothing else, I'm glad that it took a school project to get me started doing something like this. Um, but I've got momentum now, so why not continue it? If you guys like it, let me know. Give me any feedback, positive or negative. Um, I'll try to read it. It's funny, like I've almost already got anxiety about like, what if I get popular and then I get negative comments on YouTube or Instagram? Which is such a funny thing to be scared about because that's not something I've ever really had to deal with before, and I feel like it's you know what? We don't need to talk about it because it's not a reality yet for me. So I'll talk about it when I have to deal with it. and I'm sure it'll be a growing pain like everything else. So, hope you enjoyed these 4 episodes. I mostly enjoyed making it, but ultimately, I look back at on how I've grown just in these few weeks doing these episodes, and I'm really thankful, and I'm just happy that anybody is happy from this. So thank you guys. We'll see you on the other side of summer. Bye.